Hi guys, it's Ouchmamano. How's everyone doing? Good, I hope. Today I wanted to do a kind of semi-fun video. I mean, it's fun in my eyes, I don't know about you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I wanted to debunk some common fragrance myths. Things that I hear people say, questions that I see commonly asked, things that I've seen come up in conversation with myself that just recur and that are just not true. So this might cause some controversy or controversy. How do you say it? It's up to you. But I'm gonna go through them and we'll just have a little chit chat. So pull up a chair and let's talk some sense into some stuff today, okay? See you in a sec. So I have 11. So I'll try and get through them as quick as I can, but I'm probably gonna go on a couple of rants, so be careful and be ready. So the first one is, Ambergris is whale vomit. It is not. Number 2, no, I'm only kidding, I'm going to explain. So if you don't know what ambergris is, I'll quickly explain. It is one of, if not the most expensive materials used in perfumery. Yes, it comes from whales, but it is not from vomit. It is actually from the other end. What it is a secretion or a protection layer that only a small number of whales can produce. It's actually sperm whales, and I think it goes even more subspecies than that. I think it's only the pygmy sperm whale and one other one that can produce it. Their main diet, or part of their main diet, is squid. And as disgusting as it is, squids have beaks. It makes me feel sick to think that a marine squidgy animal can have a beak inside of it. But anyway, that's nature. So what happens is, the whales eat these squids and the beaks irritate their digestive system. So in their intestines, they form this protective layer to stop their intestines and their internal organs getting damaged. Well, their intestines mainly, not their organs, but it stops them from getting damaged by these sharp beaks. What happens is, unfortunately, this build-up can eventually kill the whale. So sometimes ambergris is found inside dead whales, but more often than not, the whale will excrete it, expunge it, I don't know what word you want to use, but it comes out of the backside of the whale. And I've smelled it. I have smelled black ambergris and I have smelled white ambergris. Depending on how long it's been in the ocean for, black ambergris is the newer, fresher type ambergris. It really smells like poop, okay? It really does. To me, it smelled like a combination of raw sewage, stagnant pond water, and if you leave water in a vase with flowers too long, combination of all three of those things. You can tell that it definitely comes from a rectum. You also have grey ambergris. What happens is this ambergris floats on the ocean, and decades, I think even sometimes centuries, of sun and sea and swirling and refinement turn it into grey ambergris, which is the real ambergris, which is the real prized possession here. You might have even walked past it on the beach. It looks like a pebble. There are people now that use dogs to go and hunt it, because if you stumble across a lump of ambergris, you, my friend, can be very, very rich. So that's the first myth debunked. Ambergris is not whale vomit. The second thing I hear all the time is niche is better. I want to talk about this one because I'm guilty of doing this myself. I think a lot of people in the fragrance world put fragrances into a broad category where it's celebrity, designer, niche. It is not the case. As with everything in life, you're gonna have good and bad in every area. Everything that happens has good and bad in it. That's the way I see it. I'm a Gemini, I see things from both sides all the time. But let me tell you, I have tried multiple niche brands that have been absolutely appalling, and then I've tried designer brands that I think are really gorgeous and well made. Narciso Rodriguez is a really good example of that. I've also tried some great celebrity fragrances that outperform, outlast everything niche fragrances. The only fact of the matter is, in this situation, is that niche fragrances are more experimental. And the reason for that is because they're not mass produced on huge levels, they can afford to be more experimental, they are not restricted creatively, and they can afford to use slightly more rare materials because they're not buying them in 1,000 tons at a time. Take for instance jasmine in Chanel perfumes. How much of it must they have to buy in order to keep up with demand? You often have, with designer fragrances, a big wig at the top that has a brief for a super talented perfumer, and they're restricted. A niche brand is usually a one-man band or a couple of people or a smaller business that has full creative control. So I will say to you, there's good and bad in everything. Niche isn't always better than designer. However, I delved into the niche world because I found myself becoming slightly bored with the lack of creativity in designer fragrances, and I had to find so many and go through so many to find something that stuck out. So if that's you, maybe delve a little bit into the niche world. There are some fantastic ones out there, and the majority of the ones out there are good, but there's good and bad in everything. The next one is eau de parfum is usually stronger than eau de toilette. And put that into context with any kind of concentration. Parfum, eau de cologne, eau de toilette, anything. There is a general scale of concentration when it comes to perfumes, and brands can slide that scale up and down according to how they feel or what their view of it is. One brand might say 15%, one brand might have a fragrance that's 15% concentration and they might call it an eau de parfum, while the next brand might call it an eau de toilette. It's not the case to say that an eau de parfum is always going to be stronger than an eau de toilette. The only way I can put it is this. An eau de toilette oriental style fragrance that is hyper rich and resinous and full of woods is definitely going to be stronger than a citrus fragrance that is an eau de parfum. That's the only way I can put it into words, and that's the only way I can make sense of it in my own head. If you get an eau de parfum, you're not always going to get a stronger fragrance than if you got an eau de toilette. There. As a little segue from that one, if you have an eau de toilette and an eau de parfum of the same perfume, sometimes it's going to mean that it's a high concentration. I mean, it probably is, but sometimes it means that they have tweaked the composition entirely as well. I'm going to use Narciso Rodriguez as another example of that. He has a fragrance called For Her, which comes in eau de parfum and eau de toilette. There is a slight variance in the notes and the composition as well as the concentration. Just something to consider. That also leads me on to my third one, which is the more expensive a fragrance is, the better it is. It's such a common misconception. I mean, this is kind of not tied to it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I see lots of beautiful pictures of people's collections where they solely have super luxury brands like Xershov and Amouage, and it's pretty much just a glittering sea of really expensive fragrances, and people are impressed by that, you know. Wow, you obviously have a lot of money. Your fragrance collection is amazing. The fact of the matter is, some of those fragrances probably aren't very good. If the person likes them, that's fine. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that because it has a high price tag, like some of the Roger Dove perfumes that are £300, it doesn't mean that it's better. It just means that some of the time you're paying for packaging, especially Roger Dove having those little crystal things and the gold and everything like that, and you're paying for the name. There's a common misconception that because it's worth £1,000, it's better or stronger or just more exciting than something down the line that's worth 50. It's all a balancing game, guys. There's good and bad in everything. I think that's going to be the theme and the motto of this video. Anyway, on to the next myth. This one's a really important one to me, and I'm going to aim this one at my lovely friends across the pond in the USA, because you guys are the people that I hear say this quite often. The myth is, cologne is for men, perfume is for women. I'm aiming this at you lovely USA guys. No hate here, no judging, but I hear you guys say, oh, he was wearing a great cologne, or what cologne was he wearing? Oh, your perfume smells great to a woman. And cologne is gendered to men and perfume is gendered to women. It's not the case. I'm going to say that quite a lot as well. Get used to it. What cologne actually means, in fact, is it's a concentration of fragrance. You can reference the scale I used when I talked about eau de parfum is stronger than eau de toilette. It kind of goes floral water, eau de cologne in terms of strength, eau de toilette, eau de parfum, and parfum. And then you have a couple of other weird ones in between, like parfum de toilette and a few other things. Cologne is a concentration. It's usually around 3%, maybe 5%, depending on the scale that I talked about. But I know that's probably a culture thing, but it's not cologne. Men wear cologne and women wear perfume. If you just say fragrance, you cover all bases. Keep yourself safe. Just say, what fragrance are you wearing? Or he was wearing a great fragrance, because then no genders are involved. I mean, say what you like. I'm not here to tell you how to suck eggs. I'm just trying to point a few facts out. Okay. Another one leading on from my last point is perfume has an age, gender, season attached to it. It's all very well saying personally for yourself, you know, oh, I think that perfume smells a bit old for me, or I'm too young to wear that, or I wouldn't wear that in summer. But when it comes from the outside, it's something that really bothers me. And I'll give you an example. I went to a department store once when there was a new fragrance being released. I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. I think went to Sephora. It was many years ago when Sephora existed in the UK. It doesn't anymore. But I remember saying to the lady behind the counter, hey, I'd like to try the new blah, 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 whatever it was. And she sprayed it on a card and went like this. So I said to her, oh, would you mind spraying it on my skin? I'd really like to get the real impression of how it develops on my skin. And she said, you do know it's for women, right? So I kind of just eye rolled, yeah, I know it's for women, okay. And then I just left because to me, when it comes from the outside, no one should tell you what perfume to wear. Perfume does not have a gender. A smell is a smell is a smell. A rose is a rose. If you want to smell like a rose, wear it. I think it's just stereotypes from the past, and it's one of the most common questions I get asked on my channel when I'm reviewing a fragrance that is marketed towards women. People say, can a man wear this? I used to explain myself in the way that I'm explaining now, but now I just say things like, yeah, you just pick the bottle up and you just put it on your skin like that, and that's how you wear it, because in a friendly way, not in a super sarcastic way, but luckily now gender stereotypes are being broken on every level, in all parts of the world and just all the fibers of all the beings. And that's why another reason why I kind of went to niche, because 99% of niche fragrance companies do not label their fragrances based on who should wear it or who it's marketed towards. I'm guilty of, in my reviews, saying things like this leans masculine or this leans feminine, but I'm kind of keeping it in the traditional sense to give people an idea of what is traditionally masculine and feminine. So yeah, that was a rant, but it's another one I wanted to talk about. The next one is another one I'm guilty of, but I'm going to say it anyway, and it's about rubbing wrists together when you apply your fragrance. Some people believe that this spreads the perfume better. It's muscle memory for me. I don't do it that much anymore, but I used to do it all the time. I wanted to talk about the fact that rubbing your wrists together when you apply fragrance does not spread it quicker. It is not good for the perfume. Perfumes are made out of delicate molecules and very delicate essential oils. Rubbing your wrists together creates friction and heat, and what you're actually doing is damaging it or changing the composition in some, you know, not subconscious, but on some level below. You're changing the composition. You're probably destroying some of the notes as well. So if it's a bad habit of yours, which it is of mine, just spray like this, and you will be good to go. The next one is one that makes me chuckle internally, because I have had a lot of customers say this to me before, or people, when I talk to them about the fact that I'm really into fragrance, they say, oh, is it true that? So I'm going to talk about it, and it is, if you can't smell your perfume on yourself, it means it suits you. Let me just clear this one up right now. This is such a common myth, and I've heard it from so many people. If you spray your perfume on and you can't smell it, that means that it suits me. I mean, it's the strangest thing I've ever heard. What's happening here is anosmia to your own fragrance. Your nose can only smell certain things for a certain amount of time. The best way I can put it into words and explain it is, when you, person watching, gets home from your day of work, or if you've been out of your house for a few hours, when you step inside your front door, you can smell home, right? You can smell your house, you can smell the smell of what's familiar to you. In about 10 or 15 minutes, you can't smell that anymore. Your nose has attuned, it has accustomed to your surroundings. It doesn't mean the smell isn't there. If somebody else walks into your house, they're going to smell your house, but guaranteed they won't be smelling it in 20 minutes. So it's the same when you wear your fragrance. This is the reason why a lot of people that have been dedicated to one perfume their whole life massively overspray them, because their nose is so used to that smell that it's almost like it's invisible to them. So when you're wearing a perfume here, it's around you the whole time. It's in your face, it's in your nostrils, it's in your nose hairs. There's gonna come a point where you can't smell it anymore. It doesn't mean that it suits you, it just means your nose is switched off. Pure and simple. This is another one I hear. This is the second to last one, and it is testers are stronger than the actual product that you buy. A lot of people believe that when you test a fragrance in store and you test the one that's on display, the company has made it stronger in order for you to buy it because you think, oh, it's really strong, and then they get their fragrance home, get it out of the box, and it's not as strong. Let me tell you, there was a time when I used to buy all of my fragrances online from one particular fragrance company in America, which I don't anymore because you get charged customs and stuff like that. But they had an entire section of their website dedicated to testers. I bought a lot because I was on a budget and they were cheap, and I can safely say never once have I experienced any difference in a tester to a product. When I've had the actual bottle and still had some of my tester left, there's never been any difference. I don't think the companies are trying to dupe anyone in that way. That would be very dishonest if they were. I just think it's a feeling. I can attribute it to one thing, and this is only my take. Testers in shops are left out in the open all the time, usually under fluorescent lighting, sometimes in heat because lights can be hot. They're getting picked up and jiggled around all the time by multiple customers and staff, and things like that can contribute to the aging of a perfume. It can speed it up, especially if something's in light. It can damage it if it's too much, but it can also speed up the aging process of a perfume. And when a perfume has aged a little bit, especially if it's an oriental or a heavy, dark fragrance, it can sometimes appear stronger, or it can feel stronger, especially if something's got a lot of vanilla as well. When things age, they intensify a little bit. So that's the only thing I can think that's happening in this situation. I definitely don't think that perfume companies purposefully make their testers stronger to dupe you into buying it, only for you to have a weaker one when you open it. Also, bear in mind, when you open your fragrance new out of the box, it's fresh. Fresh fragrances feel very different to something that's been around for like a year or so. So consider that. The second to last one is a tricky subject, and it's all about pheromones. So a lot of people think that when you wear a fragrance, you're gonna ultimately become more attractive. I don't agree with that. I think yourself is what makes you attractive. Flash a nice smile, be charming, be well presented, have confidence. That's gonna make you more attractive. Yeah, a fragrance can enhance the way you feel to make you more confident, but I don't think there's such a thing as a panty dropper or a fragrance that becomes this magic potion that makes you ultimately super irresistible to the opposite sex, or the same sex, or your dog, or your cat, or your fish, whoever. But then comes along this thing about pheromones. Companies claim that they can put pheromones into a perfume, which are things that do not smell, but they send a signal to the opposite sex, or whoever, to attract them to you more. I read up a lot about this one, and it is a bit of a sensitive and in-depth subject that I'm not super familiar with, but my knowledge tells me that we have the same gland or section of our nose as animals do that can detect pheromones, but scientists haven't even proven that we can use it yet. Dogs can, insects can, rats can. So by saying that they're putting pheromones into a perfume, my guess is that they're putting animal pheromones in them, which is going to make you attractive to within that species, not really to another human. It's a bit of a mystery. I don't think that it's a thing. If anyone's got any information about that, tell me, but I've heard people say, oh, I can smell the pheromones in it. I'm not sure that they even have a smell. It's more of a signal than something like a note. So, bit of a weird one. Penultimate myth, but I would like to discuss that one with anyone that has knowledge, if there's any scientist perfume lovers here. So on to the last myth. And the last one is, synthetics are bad. This is more of an opinion than a myth, but how many times have I heard, I don't want anything synthetic in my perfume, I only use naturals. That's fine if that's your preference, but then you can't ever really want things to be a fantasy. if you don't have synthetics. We need synthetics to volumize, enhance, create longevity, and have fantasy notes in our perfume. If you want a perfume to smell like strawberry, you're gonna have to have a synthetic in it. Fruits cannot be distilled unless they are a citrus. So there are certain flowers that can't be distilled. You're gonna need to have an accord, which isn't synthetic, or a synthetic reproduction of that flower. Synthetics are good. They fill the gaps, they enhance the perfume. Yes, like I said, it's probably a preference, but when people say, and myself included, it smells really synthetic, what I mean is that it smells super fake. You can have synthetic materials that really mimic the natural feeling of an ingredient. When I reference it in any of my videos, if you've ever heard me say it in the past, I'm talking about super fake. So just wanted to say, it's not really a myth, but I wanted to talk about it anyway in this video. Synthetics are bad. I don't think they are. Do you? If you want a fragrance to smell like cherry, if you want it to smell like banana, if you want it to smell like these abstract metals and concrete, you're gonna have to have molecules and isolates and synthetics to make fragrance interesting. All right, that is my list of semi-myths, hopefully debunked, and just my humble opinion about what's going on, and I just wanted to share a bit of knowledge with you. I hope you guys liked this video and it gave you a little bit of entertainment on this lovely Friday. Anyway guys, I'm Ouch Pheromones, trying to make the world smell better, one video at a time. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.